Perfect. So the audience is we will speak today. We have most of our participants are coming from Canada, so we're going to address this, but we're going to address questions for and topics that are related to many countries, many different countries. So I will leave our experts explain you that. So welcome to this webinar. I'm happy that you join us today. We have the chance to have two wonderful experts that I have the pleasure to work with. It's Kevin Oxam, our deliverability director, and Yana Tori Aspaki, who worked with us in the past and is now has done her own spin-off and is still interested and in love with email marketing and good practice. So I will leave you with them. If you have any question, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, as I said, and I will try to ask them as we go on the webinar. You can also keep them for the end. So thanks a lot. Merci tout le monde. And now we'll leave the room to Kevin and Yana Tori.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. I guess it's not too late to still say Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you for signing up. As Isabel mentioned, my name is Kevin Huxon. I'm here with Yana Tori. We're both email deliverability specialists. This is a particularly interesting year in that Gmail is making some major changes to the industry with regard to DMARC. That will be our topic number one today. We're going to be starting with that. There's a lot of questions around not only DMARC, but authentication in general. So we're going to try and cover everything at a high level. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask during the presentation, at the end of the presentation, or if something comes to you in the car on the way home from work, you can feel free to send us an email or Yana Tori as well. So I'll just introduce Yana Tori. If you want to go on to the next slide, we'll just show you. As Isabel mentioned, I'm Director of Deliverability here at CakeMail. I've been here for almost 16 years now. Prior to that, I worked for another ESP campaigner. And prior to that, I worked for Bell Simpatico, one of the largest ISPs, receivers in Canada. So I'm over 20 plus years in email, and you know, it's a passion that I have. It's always changing. It's never the same. It's especially this very topic with regard to Gmail's changes. So Yana Tori, thank you for joining us. You're a couple hours ahead in UK there. So I want to thanks again for staying up late, and yeah, just introduce yourself.
Of course. I hope I'm not on mute. I'm Yana Tori. I'm a deliverability specialist in the CRO of SSL Mail and Email Console. I started my email career back when I was at CakeMail. The first, was it like 6-7 years? And I fell in love with deliverability after working right next to Kevin. Since then, I have one goal. So everything I do is obviously related to email deliverability, and it is to simplify and democratize deliverability for all. Deliverability shouldn't only be accessible for big senders or people who have the budget to hire people like me and Kevin. And because it's the most important thing, we all know that we're using email for businesses to generate revenue. So that's what we're here for. Let's make sure that you keep making money through email.
Yeah, you can see our emails at the bottom there, kevin@cakemail.com. You can reach me directly anytime, and Yana Tori's is there as well. So there'll also be a follow-up email, obviously, with the recording of this presentation. Isabel will send out likely tomorrow. And in it will include, obviously, our contact information, as well as a lot of useful links, which we'll get to in a second with regard to the whole topic, email authentication, a lot of tools out there. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Yeah, first slide for a reason. Gmail is changing the industry together with Yahoo. They're kind of teamed up for this one with regard to DMARC. Those who aren't familiar with DMARC, we'll talk about it in a slide coming up, but basically it's a method of authentication that cybercrime is really on the rise, especially with the current economy and high inflation. People tend to turn to nefarious methods of making money, and part of that is phishing and spoofing. Spoofing is where you pretend to be another company. You'll actually use their domain to send emails. So DMARC is a huge part in making sure that doesn't happen. So not only is it a requirement now as of February, they haven't actually said when in February, but I know for a fact that they're going to start rolling it out slowly over the next couple months. There are a few requirements with regard to Gmail's changes, and the number one is setting up authentication. So you need your own domain to do that. You can no longer use a third party or another ESP to send from using a gmail.com address. So if you're doing that now, you're in the right place, because we're going to be talking about how to set up your own domain, how to set up authentication, and we'll go from there. Part of the requirements as well with Gmail, without getting too technical, they require as well a list unsubscribe header. So, and the unsubscribe link needs to be clearly visible in the content that you're sending. So if you're using an ESP like CakeMail, I mean, there's lots of different ESPs out there. They take a lot of that of the, guessing and the trouble away from you with regard to list unsubscribe. That's something that we haven't had in place at CakeMail for years now, probably 4 or 5 years. It's a hidden header in the email. So it requires a one-click unsubscribe. So Gmail will actually show in their interface. It'll have a little unsubscribe link, and if you click on that, you'll be removed from the list. Yahoo has that as well. A lot of large ISPs have that as well. Hotmail. Another thing Gmail is going to be doing is monitoring the spam rates. So they have monitored, obviously, for years now, the number of people that click the spam button to the emails that you send, but they're going to start blocking as of February. So they have specifically said if you have a spam rate higher than 0.3%, you will start to see your emails getting blocked. They recommend a spam rate below 0.1%. So it's 1 in 1,000 people, one person clicking spam. Now, there are some advanced technical requirements there as well. I'm not really going to get into that. PTR records with regard to the IP address. I mean, your ESP should have that in place already. I mean, these are internet standards that have been around for decades. You need a valid PTR record with the IP address that is sending. TLS stands for transport layer security. It's just a method of encryption that, again, CakeMail has in place for years. So really, this revolves around DMARC, and that really puts the ball in your court. I mean, it's your domain. This is your domain that you need to set up for the authentication, and it requires. It's not for everyone. I mean, Gmail does mention that they need senders to send at least 5,000 emails a day. Now, that can change. Obviously, if you're a marketer, you want your list to grow. So you may not be 5,000 emails today, but technically you want your list to grow. So why not set that up now with the goal of reaching that if you're not at 5,000 membership already?
Two things that sorry, Kev, two things that we mentioned during the preparation of this webinar is those are actually things that have been good practice that we recommended for years. So those are, Gmail is coming with the goal to enforce them, but those are actually good practice that we're trying to implement for years. So those are not coming as out from the blue. And obviously there's a lot of complicated words there. We're here to help. We have to say that. Don't hesitate to contact us. And if I want to go back to the word authentication for like a newbie, the authentication, could you just explain what does it mean in layman terms?
Yeah, well, that will be part of our presentation in the coming slides, not only, but first I want to really get back to getting your own domain. So if you do not have a domain already, or if you do have one and you're not using it, you need to set up authentication. There are different ways to do that. We're going to talk about each one in depth, but priority one, if you don't have your domain already, we'll go on to the next slide, is to register your own domain, which is relatively easy. Yana, Troy, you want to talk a little bit about that? You have your own domain. You have several domains.
Yeah, every
Why
idea
stop at one?
I should be authenticating more of them, though. They're all ideas yet for now. When it comes to registering your domain, there's a couple of things that we need to say before. I know that in the industry, one of the tricks to ensure that you can send emails a lot in the inbox is to just keep buying domains every time you do something bad. That doesn't work. It hasn't worked for years. It may work for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but at some point, you have to understand that Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, regardless of these enforcements that are coming up in February, They're like billion-dollar businesses. They invest millions in their spam filters. So if you think that changing your domain, changing one word in your content, rotating and changing email marketing software providers is going to save you from a spam filter that is so intelligent we can't possibly like keep up, it's not going to be good enough. So the most important part before we even register the domain is choosing the name, of course, but deciding what that name is going to be for a very, very long time. Just like your credit score, I mean, you may have $1 million and you're able to get a new social security number so you can go to the bank and open a new credit card. But let's all be honest, that's not something that is possible for everyone. So choose a domain and make sure that all these changes that we're talking about, or all these enforcements and best practices, are going to be put in place so that you don't ruin the domain that you're purchasing and that you can keep using it forever. The other thing is the 5,000. I know that people are like, oh, I send less than 5,000 a month. Again, Google is smarter than that, and so is Yahoo and all the other inbox service providers. And the thing that we need to understand as well is that if they're going to be requiring, for example, a 0.1 spam rate or lower, if you had 100 people on your list and one person reported the email as spam, you'd already be at 1%. That's where the numbers start, it's like a numbers game a little bit. So of course, when you have the 5,000, you get like about 5 people can complain and so on. So please don't use that 5,000 to say, hey, I don't need to do anything. So yeah. I don't know, Kevin, if you have any registrars that you love best.
I just listed 5 that came to my top of my head. I actually use Internet Solutions. I like them a lot. But it all depends how you're going to be using your domain. I mean, if you're a relative newbie, HostGator is one of the best for, people who don't have a lot of experience. They're ideal for beginners. It's really easy to register. There's lots of extensions. There's lots of add-ons you can do. Bluehost as well is probably one of the largest registrars on the planet. They offer WordPress. So if you're familiar with WordPress and website building, with that, they also offer free SSL certificates. Again, not getting too technical here, but that's when you switch your HTTP to HTTPS. It just makes the connection more secure. So if your website is sharing anything like a login information or passwords or banking, checkout process, you want to make sure it's on SSL. GoDaddy, I mean, everyone's heard of that. Thanks to Danica Kirkpatrick and the Super Bowl commercials. Domain.com. Yeah, there's tons of them out there. Just do your homework. If you want to go on to the next slide, these are just the top 5 registrars out there, but these are important tips to which registrar to choose. So when you're shopping around for who's going to be hosting your domain, just be aware of pricing. If it might be, $9 for the first year, and then boom, it goes up to $40 for the next year. So just be aware of that. Read the fine print carefully, and the registration period as well. Is it per year? Is it per month? Are you signing up for a 5-year term here? I mean, the period is also important, and you want to make sure that it renews automatically, because you don't want to lose your domain. Trust me, that is an absolute nightmare. People have, had domains for years. They've built a good, solid reputation, and then whoop, the auto renewal wasn't set up for it, and the domain expires, and then as soon as it does, then it's available for purchase by someone else. So, I mean, there's a monetary value attached to domains. So you want to make sure that it auto renews. That should be set up like that automatically, but you just want to, it's something to keep in mind. How easy is it to transfer? So, if you're going from, say, HostGator to Internet or GoDaddy, you want to make sure that it's easy to transfer. There's no downtime. If you're with someone else now and you're thinking of switching, add-on services, like I said before, WordPress, all kind of website builders out there, and there's also email marketing that are built into registrars. That's a service as well. DNS management, which we're going to talk about a lot of in a second here with regard to authentication. It should be easy to use. In years past, it's been difficult and cumbersome, and a lot of people have been scared of it, and they might have entered the wrong DNS entry and it's caused problems. So there's a lot of unknown and fear with regard to changing your DNS, and it can have some serious ramifications. So you need to be careful there, and it should be very user friendly. Security, fraud detection. If your website has an e-commerce checkout, I mean, all these things you need to keep in mind. So do your homework when you're looking for a registrar, but getting your own domain.
And one of the things we've encountered at CakeMill as well is that a lot of people don't really necessarily need like a business inbox. They've bought their domain, they have one for their website, but they don't really need to communicate let's say in a professional manner, or however you want to say it. I understand that like Google and Microsoft, it can get quite hefty, especially if you have a lot of users, like $10, $15 a month. And if it's just to be able to send emails through CakeMail, you might say like, is it really worth it? One, we don't really have a choice anymore, so you gotta. And two, there are a couple of reputable inbox service providers. I think the one we were referring to back in the day was like Zoho. It used to be free. I think now it's like $1 a month. And you can create an inbox. You would get like a real inbox with your domain, whatever you want in the front of it. And that would allow you as well to use that same email address in order to do your campaigns or your newsletters and your automations. So just in case anybody is just like, well, I don't really want to pay the 15, and it's getting more expensive every year, right? To have an inbox. Zoho is one that's free or almost free at this point. And I know some of the registrars as well will offer this inbox. So if you buy the domain, you get a year free with Microsoft. I think that's the GoDaddy thing that they have. So there's a couple of things there that can be done to make sure you can like save some money and follow best practices, of course.
Yeah, you think about how many billions of domains there are out there.
I know.
You used to be able to buy a domain that was four letters, like car.com, but those days are long gone.
Yeah.
So you need to pick a domain that people instantly recognize who you are and what you represent, where they have a relationship with you. If they've purchased something, it should be, it should have a strong online presence. I mean, that's the whole reason for having a domain. It should reinforce your business, and it should be, across all of the different channels of communication that you use. It's not just the domain for your website, but you should be sending email from it as well. It establishes credibility, it establishes trust, it's more professional, and it should stay consistent. Like Anatoly mentioned, once you have a domain, stick with it. Don't try and bounce around the different domains to try and get around blocks, because your reputation follows you. And the minute you're labeled as someone who does that, it's very hard to erase that negative reputation. And obviously, the only way you're able to authenticate is by purchasing your own domain. So if you don't have that already, it's something I highly suggest doing very shortly. The first part.
We can also mention, obviously, that there are some more local business that are doing that. Fonio is one of them. For people in Quebec and in Montreal, we can discuss that with you later if you want.
Yeah, there's thousands of them out there. Authentication, why is it so important? Next slide.
You ready?
Yep. Like I said, we've said this a few times, Gmail and Yahoo are going to require DMARC and authentication. In order for DMARC to work, you need to have DKIM set up already. I mean, DKIM's been around for almost 2 decades now. It's a lot of people are using it already. But in order for DMARC to pass, you need to either pass DKIM or SPF, and it needs to be on the same domain. So not only does it help identify you as a sender, but it prevents, like I mentioned before, spoofing, people using your domain without your permission. It increases your deliverability. It lowers phishing attempts, improves your reputation, and protects your brand at the same time. So that's why authentication is important. There's different protocols like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But it can make it more difficult for attackers to impersonate you. So these are all good things when it comes to protecting your domain.
Yeah, and it's important to understand because there's like two types of, or like two groups, at least in my head, for spoofing. They're the ones that you're targeting a particular company, right? I want to pretend to be PayPal, to scam people, or pretend to be a bank. And that's what people think of when they think of spoofing, right? Scams and things like that. And like, my business is too small to be spoofed. And then that's the second group for me. There's the people who just want to send out emails and they don't care what the domain is. They're going to go and check how randomly there's a computer doing all this, right? So trying to find domains that do exist, and then try to find domains that may or may not have a website. So like, I have 1 million of them, and I should definitely go in and put a DMARC in there. And then there's just reputable businesses who may or may not be sending emails. And a lot of businesses, they keep that in mind. Like, I'm not PayPal, I'm not a bank, who would care? And well, a scammer who's trying to get into the inbox cares that there's a reputable domain that can be used. And this is public information. You can go online and check, is your DMARC set up correctly? Is your SPF set up correctly? So it's very easy to figure out which domains are protecting themselves or have a form of checking if somebody's pretending to be them with DMARC. So your business is not small enough. And if I remember correctly, I think it was Matthew Verhood who had posted something and he was helping somebody authenticate. And it was a tiny company, had 2-3 email addresses. And when they put in DMARC, they figured out there was like thousands of emails being sent out using that tiny little domain that was just, I think, like kind of like a yanatori.com. I don't really have a website, or I don't care about it. It's just there to look professional. And it was very impressive to see this like random Canadian business in the middle of nowhere having thousands of emails spoofed from them. So you're not too tiny. Everybody should do this regardless of Google and Yahoo.
Okay, so let's get into the main methods of authentication here without being too technical. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask along the way or afterwards. SPF stands for Sender Policy Framework. Basically, it authenticates the return path or the from domain, envelope from, with an IP address. So it lists in your DNS record all the IP addresses that are allowed to send on your domain's behalf. Now, if you're using an ESP like CakeMail, you don't necessarily need to worry about this. We're not only handling this for you by default. If you create an account, the SPF may not align with your from domain, but it will authenticate. And we can also brand accounts. So if you have your own domain and you want all of the links within the entire email, and the bounce domain, the from, all of the tracking links within the actual email itself, all of that can be branded within CakeMail. Another method of authentication is DKIM, stands for Domain Keys Identified Mail. It's been around for almost 2 decades now. It's a very secure way of the receivers being able to identify that you are who you say you are by whoever the sender is. So if you're using CakeMail, we'll actually encrypt the message in transit, and during that communication with the receiver, there will be a digital signature that is attached. It's called a private key. And when the receiver detects that private key, it will go and look up the DNS of the from domain. So that's you, the client domain. And if the DNS entry is there, then those 2 keys will match and DKIM will authenticate. You can have DKIM on any number of subdomains, on the root domain as well, the org domain. And basically, DMARC feeds off both of those. So, you can have a very strict DMARC record in that both DKIM and SPF have to align, but by default, the state of that is relaxed. So as long as either DKIM or SPF passes and it aligns with the from domain that you're using, DMARC will pass as well. And the amazing thing with DMARC is you, the sender, get to control what happens to mail sent from your domain. So if you're sure that all of your domain is authenticated, all of your email, all of your different channels, is authenticating correctly, then you can change your policy in DMARC to either quarantine or reject. So that is telling the world, or any receiver that is looking at DMARC, that if the email is not authenticated, if DKIM is not there, then don't accept this mail. Either send it to junk box, quarantine, or reject it completely. And that's really why Gmail is introducing these new regulations. They want as many people on board as possible with regard to DMARC. I think there's a global adoption rate of about less than 15% right now. I'm really curious how that's going to change in the next couple of weeks as more people come on board with DMARC. But again, in order for DMARC to pass, DKIM needs to be there. So most senders do have DKIM already set up. It's built into CakeMail as well. We have an authentication flow with your sender, and you can actually put your domain in there, and it'll tell you exactly. You can copy paste the DNS entries directly from CakeMail into your registrar DNS panel for SPF, for DKIM, as well as all the tracking links as well. It allows you to control who and who can't use your domain. So it's a really powerful weapon in the fight against spam. So like I said before, cybercrime is on the rise, domain spoofing is on the rise. It doesn't have to be a large domain or a large entity, a large online presence, but Gmail is they're telling us to jump. So they're the #1 receiver in the world. They have the #1 most inboxes on the planet. So whatever they decide, the rest of us need to basically fall in line. But it's all for the good. You can't stay stagnant and ignore this problem forever. So cybercrime domain spoofing. It's a big problem. Gmail's in the right track to change that.
Yeah, and tell me, Kevin, if you think my theory is aligned. But a couple of years ago, two years ago, Europa announced that they were going to force all inbox service providers that work in Europe, either they do business in Europe or the recipients are in Europe, and it was going to enforce those inboxes to look at SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. This was 2 years ago, so they said about 5 years. So in the next 3 years, maybe they extended a little bit, every single inbox service provider is going to not only have to accept emails that are authenticated, but all the way to DMARC as well. So my theory was that Google was like, why not? It helps us reduce the amount of emails we need to store, reduce the amount of emails we need to deal with in terms of the spam filters and users just creating mailboxes like I do every 5 years and fill them up. So my theory is that in the next couple of years, we might be talking about Google and Yahoo right now, but everybody's going to fall in line and do the exact same thing. So Microsoft is going to be enforcing it. It's going up and down, right, with Microsoft the last couple of years when it comes to DMARC, but I'm assuming that every single inbox service provider is going to have to do it. No choice, either because of legal reasons or for security reasons. So it's not just because we've said it today. All these things need to be enforced. And
yeah, most people I've talked, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying laws keep coming out all the time about email, so we never know.
Yeah. Most people I've talked to who have set up DMARC wonder why they never did it before. I mean, they suddenly have the eyes on who's using their domain, because not only do you get to control what happens to the email that's either authenticated or not, but you actually get a report back. So you'll get an IP address and you'll get all, you see exactly what percentage and how many people, like you mentioned before that with Matt, he had one client and there was thousands of emails being sent that they didn't know about that were failing authentication, but just by implementing DMARC and changing their policy, you can control what happens to those messages. So let's go on to the next slide here. I think we're taking a bit too much time. Yeah, this is really cool. You want to talk about this, Tori? Let's authenticate the world.
Of course. So when I was working at CakeMail, way back when, because I'm so old now, one of the things we helped the clients, and of course CakeMail still does, was authenticate the domain. A lot of people were migrating over, and we told them how important it was, and they were always scared to do it. So we created I created this thing after doing it so much. It's free. There's no solicitation. It's just we schedule a call. I let you know what you need to have prepared. So like your CakeMail account, your GoDaddy account, and so on. If you need to buy a domain, we can do it together. And I help you get set up with SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. The reason why this is maybe interesting for some people is that we forget what kind of tools we're using. So for example, I have authenticated my CakeMail account that sends marketing emails, but I may not have authenticated my Google Suite account, so my actual business account. So when you enforce DMARC, you need to make sure that you're not going to be blocking your own emails if you're going to be enforcing a stricter policy. So you guys can just schedule a call. We get on a call, we talk about email deliverability, and make sure that at the end of the call, you're authenticated with every tool that you're using that is sending emails on your behalf. So with your sender domain. So let's authenticate.
Love
it. Very quick. List hygiene, my favorite thing.
Yeah, we gotta mention this. We talked about this last year. It's an ongoing resolution. So list hygiene for people who don't know is keeping your list clean. So I mean, your mailing list is the foundation of your entire email marketing effort. It's very important that you not only monitor who's opening and who's clicking, but if people aren't opening your emails, you need to remove them. They're dead weight, and whether you know it or not, they're affecting the delivery of the people who do want to receive your emails. If you want to go to the next slide as well. Yeah. So like I said, regularly removing inactives, bounces as well. ESPs, usually if you're using an ESP like CakeMail, will take a lot of that stress away from you. We automatically will remove bounces from your list. If it's a hard bounce, so an invalid address, it'll get changed or removed from your active list immediately. If it's an address that keeps bouncing over and over again, I mean, it's really, if you're sending 4, 5, 6, 8 emails to the person, depending on what the bounce is, I mean, chances are it's not going to get through. So those should be removed as well. Unsubscribes, I mean, that goes without saying. There are legal ramifications with regard to unsubscribes. Gmail now requires the unsubscribe in the actual content of the email as well as in the headers. And complaints. So complaints are a very interesting thing. That is user feedback. So these are people who you are sending to, people who are on your list that click, I don't know you, this is spam. So why do people do that? Either they're no longer interested in receiving your email, or they never remember signing up to your lists in the first place. So if you want to make sure that people unsubscribe over complaining, because complaining can affect your inbox placement, it can affect your deliverability. And with regard to Gmail, Isabel mentioned this this morning when we were recapping here, there is no feedback loop with Gmail. You get an idea of what your spam rate is, but they do not tell you, for privacy reasons, who complained. So that does not give you the opportunity to remove that person from your list. So it's very important, particularly with all your gmail.com addresses, to remove people who don't open and click on a regular basis. This should be an ongoing thing, like a quarterly thing. It depends, obviously how much you send, but people who aren't engaged with your content really, they're a ticking time bomb, and they're affecting your delivery, like I said. You want to talk about double opt-in? You love double opt-in, Tori?
Oh, yes, always. It does not reduce the amount of money you're going to make. It reduces the number of people that may end up in your list, but it maximizes those people in terms of ROI. So if you're giving like a free cookbook, we all agree that we might grow our list, but most of them just want the free cookbook. The people who might do will do the confirmation have given you, they've shown you some extra interest. And once they're in the list, they're gonna do everything that you ever want them to do: buy, read, reply back to your emails. So the double opt-in, there's been so many research has been done over time, just like with the tabs in Google. It doesn't reduce or impact your business side of email. And the whole point of email, let's not forget, is to get people to do something else. We're communicating with them, just like with social media, to get them to do something. So email shouldn't, in most cases, I know there's certain businesses that maybe, but email is not the end of the flow. You send an email to get people to do something. So with the confirmation email, that is the first thing you're asking them. Make sure that the information there is maybe interesting, or that you follow up quickly and you don't forget to email people on a regular basis, because that may create a problem, right, with your list hygiene. But I always do double opt-in. There's a million reasons. Bots go and add emails inside your list, and then good luck figuring out which one is a bot and which one is not, because sometimes the good bots are going to have really good looking email there, and you're going to end up having them in your list, and you might have to kind of do like a, from this date, just unsubscribe everybody, and that's it. So it's going to be very important to turn that on in your list in CakeMill if you haven't already. It's going to save you a lot of heartache. And of course, if you can try to follow up rather quickly, the welcome email series are always the most performing ones, and they're the ones that are going to make your list last longer. So if you don't have that in place, definitely put it in place. There's the automation feature. You can use the tagging system to see who should be doing certain things, but definitely a confirmation email. Number one, confirmation emails. It is the easiest way to keep your list secure. And if you're using the CakeMill forms already, there's already like a reCAPTCHA in there. There's like a typo check. There's quite a lot happening on the forms that are offered. Same thing for other email marketing software providers, I assume. So use it. Please just use it. Most of the people who have issues stem from list issues. I've been doing just the consulting for the last millions of years, and 99.999% of all my customers come to me with huge deliverability problems that can be fixed by just cleaning the list. And I don't mean only list validation tools. I mean, if you sell mattresses and somebody bought a mattress, I mean, for the next 10 years, unless they have kids or I don't know, something happened, they don't need
another hotel.
Right, fine.
You don't need to buy a mattress every year. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So there's at some point, the person might be interested in your brand, but sell them something else, pillow covers, mattress care, whatever it is. So you need to take a step back and really look at your business and be like, is this worth it? Yes or no? We tend to be very proud of our businesses, and we want to communicate, and we want the biggest chance to be in front of people's eyes. But now, and I mean, it's been years, we say now, but it's not been now. For a while, you get to decide. So there's two options when it comes to deliverability and people getting the emails. Either you decide who gets the emails, or the inbox service provider decides for you. So you send to this 10 million people, and then Google decides who's going to get it, who's going to see it based on what Google knows of what's happening in the inbox. Or you can send it to the 10,000 people who you know are going to purchase your product. And you know that those 10,000 emails will land in the inbox. So it's up to you. If you don't clean your list, you don't have double opt-in, you're not protecting yourself from external sources. It doesn't have to be only you the problem, of course. Well, you get to decide. Do you decide who gets the email, or does Google does? And then, well, that's up to you. We're here to help if ever, in any case, right?
Yeah, just another point with regard to double opt-in. Only the owner of the email address can be active on the list. So with a single opt-in list or an opt-in list, anyone can sign up president@whitehouse.gov, and boom, President Biden's going to start receiving your emails. Doesn't sound like a good thing to me. You want to make sure that the people who are signing up actually have access to that address, and that one extra step will do that. So clicking that confirmation link, and it also gives you the opportunity to welcome yourself and add your from address to their contact list. So the double opt-in confirmation emails, I mean, it's 2024, people. I'm not sure what else to say about that. It should be in place already if it's not. Let's go on to the next slide. Nothing new.
Yeah. Got it. Unsubscribes. Yay.
Yeah, so there's two ways to be removed from the list, like we've been talking about, unsubscribes and spam complaints. There is one huge difference between the two. Spam complaints will affect your reputation. So Gmail, all of the ISPs out there, they actually they monitor how many spam complaints you're generating. And like we said, if it's more than 0.3%, then they're going to start blocking your emails, because they are protecting their users. I mean, if everyone at Gmail got an inbox full of spam, guess what they're doing? They're not staying at Gmail. They're going somewhere else. Yahoo's the same. So, I mean, it does not take a lot. Spam rates 0.1%. I wouldn't go over that. 0.3. I mean, that's you're going to start seeing blocks. Complaints can severely impact your delivery, like I said, for the people who want to receive your email. So what is the point of keeping that dead weight on your list? So remove people who complain, remove people who unsubscribe, remove people who never open and click. Keeping your list clean is your responsibility. It's your list, not the ISP's. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, free tools. Okay. Oh, we did.
Here we go.
Quite good on time actually today.
I wanted to leave a lot of space for questions, and there's probably a lot out there. So yeah, a lot of tools, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to click through. Yeah. A lot of these are email console, which is with the Anatori. There's Google Postmaster as well. I just want to talk about that a little bit before you dig into email console. Google Postmaster has a great Postmaster website. You will get, it all goes off your DKIM domain. So if you have DKIM set up already and you're sending enough to have a reputation, not entirely sure how much that is yet, but it doesn't take much. I mean, a few hundred emails to Gmail a day with your DKIM signature, that domain will have a reputation for sure. It'll register. So you'll get your spam rate. You'll get whether your domain is a good, bad, or poor reputation. You'll get all the IP addresses that are sending from your domain. It'll also tell you if the authentication is passing, which authentication is passing, if it's encrypted or not, if there's any delivery errors. I mean, all of these things, and it's free. This is all free feedback from Google, the #1 receiver in the world. So if you haven't signed up already, go to postmaster@google.com and make sure your DKIM is aligned with your from domain and is authenticating, and you'll get a lot of really useful data. Again, it's just for Gmail users, but being the #1 receiver, chances are, whoever you're sending to is probably the same kind of feedback. So it's worth its weight in gold. Email console.
Yeah, so we have a couple of free tools online for you guys to check certain things. So I think I'll start from the bottom up. So the most interesting ones, I guess, right now is to put your domain or your sender domain inside the SPF, the DKIM, and the DMARC checker to see what tools they're authenticating with. When it comes to the SPF, you should only have one. So if you think you do have SPF and you see that it's not giving you, it's saying invalid, you can only have one. So you might need to mush them together or contact us so that we can help you put them all together into one, because it won't work. Then we have the email console DNSBL. It's free online. You can put your domain, your sender domain. We also have an IP if you're ever using dedicated IPs somewhere. To tell you if any of those are on a block list. We're checking all of them, so over 400 of them, and we'll let you know which ones you're having issues with. If you have any issues and you are on the block list, it's very simple. If we categorize all the block lists, it's you're sending spam traps or people you don't know, you're generating spam rates, or there's like a technical issue. Every website has a description. It tells you very clearly what the problem is. Clean your list 99% of the time and contact CakeMail if you see there's a technical thing and you have no idea what it's saying. Then it's time to contact CakeMail. But at the end of the day, it gives you a good idea of what is happening. You want to make sure that you are not on any block lists. The XML analyzer, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So for the XML analyzer, we're starting to get all the techie stuff. So I'll add a little paragraph about DMARC. So when we're talking about DMARC, we're saying how DMARC is a rule that you decide to tell Google, Hotmail, and Yahoo what to do with your emails if they don't pass. So you can either let them decide, you can tell them to put it in the spam or junk folder, or you can tell them like block it outright. Like if it doesn't pass SPF or DKIM or both, just block them. Now, the other thing that DMARC does as well, and it feels a little, people get confused a bit, but it allows these inboxes that are receiving emails with your domain to send you the report. And the report is an XML file. And the way it works that every day, every single inbox on the planet that is looking at DMARC, if they receive any emails with your domain, they're going to send you a report at the end of the day. So if you're sending emails to like 10,000 ISPs and they're all looking for DMARC, you're going to get 10,000 emails in a day. That's why DMARC tools exist. That's why we have one. There's a million competitors out there as well. We get those domains and we put them on a nice little graph so you can see over time very easily where the issues are stemming from. So if you do have a DMARC and you are getting the reports every day and you've just kind of set it and forgotten about it, you could download some of those zip files that have one XML file and upload that in the DMARC analyzer. It's free, and we'll put it like nicely. So we'll let you know on that day from Google is reporting that emails came from CakeMail, emails came from your G Suite account, emails came from your billing, and how many of them passed or how many were there, which is a good idea. If you're sending 2 emails a day and Google says that you've sent 10,000, there's a problem. If you see tools that you don't really know, sometimes, for example, so like I use CakeMail to send out emails. So I might have a company name, but Google is going to say that it's CakeMail, not CakeMail itself, but the infrastructure name that they have. So you might be using a tool and you don't know that it's CakeMail behind it or SendGrid behind it, but as long as it's passing, you'll be able to reverse engineer and make sure that all these providers that have sent emails with your domain are actually you. And it gives you as well all these like technical little details, the dates, the numbers, the IP address as well. So if you see some of the sources of email are a little bit weird or don't really fit, or there's new ones popping up and nobody in the business has made any purchases related to email tools, then it's time to kind of, activate your I don't know, little, just look at it. Ask Kevin, ask Isabel, just look at it. So I was going to start going and talking about technical stuff. So no, but it's very easy. Just download the file, put it up there and look at it. And you want everything to be green. It sounds difficult, but you can drag and drop. As long as you can drag and drop, we take care of the rest.
I'm not sure how many people out there have actually seen a raw XML file. It's kind of like, looks
like
I
have
HTML.
One open if you want.
No, it's quite enough. But what you mentioned what it includes.
Yeah,
anyway.
that's what
it includes the sender, whoever, if it's Google, you'll see google.com there, and it includes the IP address. It should give you a date stamp, a Unix date stamp of when it started, when it ended, and where it's coming from. So there's loads of data in there that XML allows receivers to send back to you. But if you're just looking at it, it looks like a bunch of humbo jumbo. So you really need an analyzer like this to to make sense of it, to put it into plain English. It can actually, there's really nice graphs out there as well, so you can see, and it'll also segment, what's passing, what's worrisome, and what's really bad. So you can click on the really bad, and it'll show you exactly who's trying to spoof your domain, and so you can take action there. With regard to the record creating wizard, I really want people to visit this. There's a really good record. So it basically takes all of the guesswork out of it. It'll ask you a bunch of questions, what your domain name is, obviously. So you put that in first, and then it'll ask you, do you want this to apply to 100% of your mail? Do you want to receive reports? Yes or no? So if you keep clicking next, you'll get the most basic DMARC record that you have, which will be Gmail compliant. and that is a policy of none. You don't want to start, blocking your own mail. The first thing you want to do with DMARC is set up a P equals none, which is a policy of none, to monitor. That's what I highly recommend. But I mean, obviously Gmail wants people to graduate to P equals quarantine or P equals reject eventually, but make sure that all of your legitimate mail that you're sending is authenticated. And if that ever changes down the road, you want to make sure that, and you'll get a report back. So say you do start sending email from some third-party service and you didn't set up DKIM, for example, then that's going to start failing and it's going to show up a NetXML report. So take a look at it on a regular basis, especially if you're adding new services. DMARC Academy as well, that's another division of DMARCian, and you will learn absolutely everything you want to learn about a DMARC there. Really cool.
And it sounds complex, but it's not. Like the people who've done the DMARC are the ones that are in the inboxes and like cake mails and so on. But the user, the sender itself, as long as you have your DMARC policy in place and you can view your reports, there's nothing complex in that part. You can very easily tell that, if you were sending from American Tools or like Cake Mail or like is in Canada, for example, and that's always been what you've seen on the graphs. And then one day emails are coming from Greece, unless somebody bought a tool that sends out emails, probably not real. So there's nothing complex. It's the setting up part that may sound a little bit scary. But again, if you can copy paste or you can follow the wizard here, you will be set. Cake Mail is going to help as well. There's nothing complex once those things are set up. You do them once. And then you can work
exactly. It's a one-time thing. Once it's set up and working, then you can not forget about it. But I mean, like I said, you'll get a report back, so you know exactly if something's broken or if you had a third-party service that you suddenly start using, you'll get notified of that. So it gives you a report card of your domain, who is using it without your permission. It goes without saying. I wouldn't want anyone using my domain without my permission, especially if I'm, a large corporation. So DMARC allows senders to control that. So it's a good thing. The fact that we're only at 15% adoption rate after 10 years is probably why Gmail is doing these changes this year. We want to get that number up and reduce the cybercrime that's out there. That's on the rise. So it's DMARC is not going away. It's a very effective way of not only authenticating your messages, proving who you say you are, and you get a report back, which is probably one of the most valuable parts about it. I mean, you get to see who's using your domain.
I know that you sound really excited about it, and I can say that I'm not too. I don't know why, but I mean, it must be very exciting. So
it is really cool.
So for the people who wants to have help on this, I understand that there's one thing. This is a once in a while setup. So once it's set up, it's going to be done unless there's major change on domain. So this is the thing that I understand that is easy. And if we want to have some help, obviously there's Kevin at Cake Mail. Yana also put on some information about what she's doing. I'm sorry. And we have a part of the documentation that is directly on Cake Mail also. We've done a little bit of information on our blog post as well as in our documentation. On the website, you can verify if you're already set up. There are some things that are coming. We already put more things in the product. If you feel that there's things that you still want some explanation about, if you still feel that you have need a more personal view on your situation, please don't hesitate to contact us. Don't wait until February. As Kev said, we don't know when it's gonna come. So the quicker you're doing it, it's going to be easier for you to be ready and check. I understand this is the major resolution this year. The rest, hygiene, hygiene is coming every year, like going to the gym. It's something that we put in our good resolution every year. And voila, thanks a lot, Kev. Yana, I don't know, I haven't seen anyone who have some question. But if you are, you can either answer them privately in the chat, or you can just reach us to ask your question. So, voilà.
Yeah, don't hesitate. There are no silly questions. This can be a very confusing topic. You kind of have a deadline here in the next 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So yeah, we're trying to get as many people authenticated as possible. Let's authenticate the world, eh, people?
Yeah, and we don't know exactly when it's going to start, what it's going to do, but what we can expect is this is going to be Gmail and Yahoo will bring on some other ISP on board into those practice. And for us, this is already something that we recommend for years. I mean, this is something that has a huge impact on already has a huge impact on the deliverability, which one day I will be able to pronounce seamlessly. Merci tout le monde. Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas. Il y a Yana et Kev qui peuvent répondre en français. Sinon, contactez-nous de façon individuelle. On sait que vous devez avoir du cas par cas. Et puis, on est vraiment là pour vous aider à définir et à clarifier tout ça. Ils ont passé beaucoup de matières un peu compliquées, un peu complexes. Donc, n'hésitez surtout pas à communiquer avec nous. Et puis, on pourra adresser votre situation spécifique. Ah, une bonne question. J'ai pas de réponse à ça, donc je vais vous la poser. Est-ce que les accents français dans la signature peuvent poser problème?
Dans la signature, comme dans un courriel?
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire par la signature dans un courriel? Parce que si c'est pas indiqué... oui, dans un courriel, ça n'a pas d'importance. C'est pas au même niveau, ça. C'est vraiment ce qu'on parle de signature, de DKIM, DMARC, c'est vraiment de l'information qui est mise sur un serveur à un autre serveur. Donc, c'est pas transparent pour vous, là. Vous le voyez juste dans la source du courriel. Donc, il n'y a pas d'autres questions. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you, everyone.
Et puis, merci pour toute votre présence. Merci, Kev, Yana. Bye bye.
Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.